You don't have to be the best, but you can always be your best.
Better than you were yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Phil.
I'm Bella, and we're When East Meets West. Please like and subscribe.
Today we're going to talk about education. And for Chinese education, nowadays there is a specific word called Neijuan. So in English, someone translated into involution. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
I don't recognize the term.
Evolution, the reverse of evolution is involution.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that an English word?
I haven't heard it, but it might be.
I Googled it. It is.
Okay. I believe you.
So the Neijuan Chinese term refers to a phenomenon where there is intense competition, but it doesn't lead to real progress or improvement. Instead, people just keep increasing their efforts into repetitive and futile way. So it leading to nothing but exhaustion. There is no significant gains.
Yeah.
So it's more like a circle, and people just trying harder and harder to outdo each other.
Yeah, like an arms race.
Yeah, but it only maintain. It's more about maintaining the same status instead of achieving the higher outcome or innovative outcome. So, for example, let's say that we work for the same company, and we generally get off work at, let's say 4, or that's too early, let's say 5. But as a Chinese, we always overwork. So I am willingly to overwork until 10.
10?
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's 5 more hours.
Yeah, that's how Chinese work.
That's crazy.
So anyway, since I am willing to do that, I don't get any reward, I don't get any bonus, I don't get any promotions. But the boss see that and just told everybody to behave like what I do. So everyone just overwork until 10. But nothing improved except for exhaustion. And the only winner is the boss, because he got some workers to overwork for him, but you don't have to pay them extra. Yeah. Yes. And the same thing happens in education, in nowadays Chinese education, because people, they like after school, they go to learn this, learn that. They don't have to use that, but they cannot afford not having that.
What are the hours like for students? Probably
from 6:30 or 6 to 10 or 11 p.m. in the yeah.
That's crazy.
Especially for high school.
Yeah, I don't think that's healthy.
It's super unhealthy, but it is what it is in China.
Yeah, here we're going the opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly.
School starts at my school. We start at 8. We have 0 period. So there are some classes that are taught at 7, which is very early.
Is that early?
Yeah,
is that what you consider as early?
Yes, that's very early. And we all know it. When I look at the students who take classes at 7 a.m., I'm like, how are you awake? But and then we go until either 2:30 or 3:30.
The school is over?
Yeah.
2:30?
Or 3:30.
Okay.
And then after that, a lot of the kids have extracurriculars. So they'll play sports. Yeah. They'll be involved in like a drama club, so kids who do sports could be at school until like 8 p.m. But they're there until 8 p.m. because and the kids do have homework.
Do they have to finish that?
Yeah, they have to just figure out how to finish that on their own time. It's unguided.
Okay.
There's no place for them to be. They just have to figure out where and when they're going to accomplish the work that has been assigned. So the teachers will assign, so for example, I'll assign, read these 2 chapters of this book and take notes.
Take notes?
Yeah. Or do an annotation or something like that. Or I'll say go and find 5 sources for your research paper. Okay. They don't do that in a classroom with anyone who can help them. They just go and figure it out on their own. And so... Would you think... And the teachers don't talk to each other, and we're not like, did you assign homework?
Yeah.
So for some nights, it can be pretty intense. I know some students stay up pretty late doing homework until 10 or 11.
10 or 11, that's
or 12.
a phenomenon in China.
Yeah. When I was in school, I would usually go to bed at
In high school or what?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I went to bed at 10. But so it can be intense.
Yeah.
It's like if you have like, a math test and a history test tomorrow, and then you're supposed to be writing a paper for your English class, all at the same, and all of that's happening on one day, then it's like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And some kids who need extra help will say like, oh, you got to find a tutor. And then they'll have to find a tutor, or like I open my classroom to kids after school until like 4 or 5. And then they can just come in and work in my classroom and ask for help if they need help.
You're a great teacher. You do that for free?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I wish your school have more teachers like you.
There's several of us.
Yeah.
There's several of us. But most of them just figure it out on their own. They go home. Their parents pick them up right after school. They go home.
Play video games.
They maybe play video games. Maybe watch TikTok or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and then at like 9 p.m., they're like, oh no, I have all my homework. I have to stay up till 1 a.m. It's not like American high school students. Yeah. Like school ends at like 3:30, say, but you still have school work to do after 3:30. Yeah. And some kids... Is
that a heavy task or just a symbolic thing?
It depends. It depends on your personal talents. It depends on the teacher.
Yeah, it depends on teacher.
On the school.
For you personally, like, would you think in this way, I am going to decrease my workload, so I'm just ask them to do less homework?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I do. For me, it ebbs and flows. Yeah. Like, so that there's like points in the year where there's a heavy workload on my students, and then points in the year where it's more relaxed. So we just came through a pretty heavy workload period where there was significant homework for like a few weeks. And this week I went easy on them. We have like a test at the end of the week, and the only homework they have is study for the test. We're doing stuff in class, and then they just have to go home and study for the test. And they get to decide how much what that's going to look like. Tell them what's going to be on the test, and then they study, and then they take the test. And,
what if they didn't finish the homework you assigned?
Then they don't get points. Their grades drop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have like quizzes and tests and homework and classwork, and it all kind of comes together. We don't teach to a test. There's not like a big standardized test that everyone's working towards. We have standardized tests, the SAT, the ACT, but we don't teach to those tests. We just teach our curriculum. That is, like, we have standards that the state has said, like, all students should know these things. So we teach to the standards, but we don't teach to the test. Yeah. And then some kids who are like very high achieving, they'll do their schoolwork, they'll do their homework, and then they'll do their SAT prep. That's separate. And they buy programs and they get books or whatever to study for the SAT, and then they take the SAT. And I know students who do that. But it's very kind of like mix and match. Not like the same program for everybody. Everyone has like a slightly different program.
Everyone has their own way.
Catered to their interests, catered to their abilities, catered to their family expectations. Yeah. Family expectations have a lot to do with it. Yeah,
to their family financial status.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a. It's different for every family, every kid.
That's
here.
Interesting, because in China, our ultimate goal for these students is for Gaokao. It's like college entrance examination. Most of them, like 99% of them, have to pass the Gaokao, the examination, to get a chance for university. So there is no other way for them except for you score higher. And you prepare, let's see, from elementary school to high school, 12 years only for that one examination, one test. So in that way, like, test.
Very teaching to the test. The test is the thing.
It's all thing. Yeah. And in the time when I was a student, students who sucked at studying were going to participate the art exam.
What is the art exam?
Just the art examination for those art schools.
What do you study at an art school?
Dancing, something like dancing, drawing, singing, and painting, anything that is art related.
How about like more blue collar jobs, like electrician, plumber? What's the route? What would be the path for someone who became like a plumber, for example?
Just drop off school.
At what point?
Whenever you think you are unable to finish the education you're supposed to do.
So like A plumber wouldn't finish high school.
There are people who drop off school for some reason when they before elementary school or after elementary school, or they never go to school for some reason. So
is it not required of all?
It is required, but in reality, something unexpected happens a lot. So
because here, if you have like a 7-year-old child in America, and you're not sending your child to school, and you're not showing that you're homeschooling your child, they just dropped out of school, they will take your child away from you. They will, it's illegal to not send your child to school. So the parent will get in trouble with the law if their child is it could be considered neglect.
Yeah.
If their child, so you're only allowed to drop out in high school in America, I'm pretty sure. If you're dropping out, you can't drop out in 5th grade. You can't, you can't drop out in 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade. You can only drop out once you reach high school. So it's not like that in China, though?
Same.
Okay.
Legally same, but personally something always happens, We cannot control everything.
Is there a certification process for people who are going into being a plumber or being an electrician?
People can
like that.
For those who drop the school early, they have to find a way to make a living. So not only being plumber or technician, there are a lot of ways for them to live a life.
Yeah, because here it would be very difficult to become a plumber if you didn't graduate high school.
No, in China it's different.
You have to have your diploma, in order to get into a school to be certified to be a plumber, or to especially electricians. That's actually not an easy job, and it's pretty dangerous, and your work impacts public safety.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's actually a pretty high paying job.
It is. It is in America, but it's not in China because. In China, let's say for plumber, it takes experience. As long as you have you find a master or teacher to teach you how to use these tools, to use these things, you can be a plumber with not a decent payment.
So it's just like a person to person thing.
Yeah.
Even for big skyscrapers in big cities, there's.
In big cities,
hospital needs a plumber, and they call some random.
There is professional plumbers, but they're also cheaper than the professional one.
Yeah. So if you want to become a professional one, what would be the route for that?
When you just finish high school, so in China, you legally you have to finish your middle school to drop off.
Okay.
So when you drop off at middle school, you can just go into there is what we call I don't know what's the English term. It's more like a school.
We call them trade schools here.
Trade school, maybe something like that, where it's a school where it teaches you skills for you to make a living. And those kids after middle school can go schools like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to graduate from any schools like that. You just the company will train you to be a skilled or experienced labor worker.
Yeah, because there's lots of jobs here that you can get without having a college degree.
Yeah,
but they still need certification, official certifications in order to do them. So
I heard that there is a perspective. American perspective that says that American education is a scam.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is a thing.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because there's lots of degrees you can get in college that don't actually make money.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're a piano major, you just think, depending on how expensive your school was, but say your school was $30,000 a year, you just think $90,000 or $120,000 to getting this degree in piano, and then you're working minimum wage basically
as a teacher,
as a piano teacher somewhere.
Yeah,
and you could actually make more and get benefits working at a fast food restaurant. Yeah, so but you have to be really good.
Yeah,
in order to and well known in order to actually make a good living.
Yeah,
with any instrument.
Yeah, piano
is probably one of the easiest to make money doing.
Yeah,
but with any instrument, you have to be the top layer in order to actually make a decent living playing your instrument. So that's like 0.001% of people who play 0.0001% of people who play violin can actually make a living.
Yeah.
But you have whole departments full of violin majors. Yeah. And so like in any given graduating class of violin majors, how many of those people is going to make a living playing violin? Almost none. Almost none of them.
Yeah.
And
you
so,
just make example for the musical major.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But for those, I think the real reason behind that,
the same thing with like English majors struggle.
No.
History majors struggle. No, I mean I know this is an English major. It's like when you're a senior English major, you're like, yeah. People ask, oh, what's your major? Oh, yeah, I'm an English major because I obviously don't care about making money, right? Because everyone knows you're not like you're going to be a teacher or something like that. And teachers don't make a lot either. Yeah. And so, so like history majors, philosophy majors, that's like terrible.
I think what happens here happens in China. Mm-hmm. But the real reason behind the awful situation here is because the tuition fee, right? Mm-hmm. Tuition fee is super expensive. Yeah. But in China, majoring in computer science, it costs higher than literature, definitely.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
it's not the same.
But
here, it's the same.
Yeah.
Flat fee, no matter what your major is.
It's also affordable for most Chinese.
Yeah. So then, like, I remember my dad told the story of someone he knew in college who was, in college getting a degree, but then in the summers he was working doing roofing. Roofing. So putting roofs on houses. And after the end of working 2 summers doing roofing, he got really good at it. He got like, I don't know, like a management position. And suddenly he was making a lot of money doing roofing. And then somehow he got a contract to do the roofing for like all the Walmarts or like all the giant companies. And then now he's like a millionaire.
Oh, wow.
And he just dropped out of college.
Yeah,
he was like, I don't need this degree.
There's no meaning for him to finish the...
Yeah, why would I finish the degree? I'm already like a millionaire.
I'm already a millionaire. The farmer won't give me the millionaire.
I mean, if you're a plumber and you're really good and you get a contract to do plumbing for like hospitals, you're going to make a lot know?
I know, you got me.
Yeah, so like contractors can actually make a lot of money. And so like people who, like the person who built all these houses, they made a lot of money. Yeah. They didn't necessarily need to go to college in order to build all these houses, but they probably make more money than the people living in them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so, like, if you're a developer, you can make a lot of money, but you don't actually need a college degree to do that. Yeah. And so here it's kind of like, I think it's because we have this like tradition of like being a self-made man here, where, because if you look at like our founding fathers, not all of them were college educated. So, like, most famously probably is Benjamin Franklin. His dad pulled him out of school when he was 10 years old. And he just, because his dad was like, what are you trying to do? Oh, you want to be a pastor? Pastors make
less money.
No money. So why am I paying money so you can be a pastor, so you can be poor? That doesn't sound like a good deal to me. Yeah. So I'm going to pull you out of school and put you in an apprenticeship. Right. And so that's what he did. But Benjamin Franklin was like, okay, I'll do this apprenticeship that I hate with all of my soul. But he just started reading books. He started reading every book he could get his hand on. And so he was like a self-educated man. Yeah. He educated himself just by reading and writing and talking to people. Yeah. That's how he educated himself. Yeah. And he was one of the founding fathers of the United States.
That's important, self-taught, self-teaching. Yeah. You don't have to go to college. Some people even graduated from college don't know that, how to teach themselves. Yeah. And it's something that we appreciate and celebrate in America. So like, just because you don't go to college doesn't necessarily mean people are going to look down on you. Yeah. Right. I remember I met and like had this very long conversation with this guy he was a welder. A welder. What is welder? So it's someone who uses hot metal to glue metal together. So he's a welder. Welders can make good money because it's a dangerous job. Yeah. But he had read more books than I had. Oh, wow. And he was every bit as conversant in philosophy as I was. And I had just graduated with my English degree from a 4-year college.
and he had never gone to college. So he had just educated himself on all these things.
Yeah.
And so I remember just being like so humbled by my interaction with him, because it made me realize, oh, the degree,
it's not everything.
It's not everything, you know? And so I think today it's less like that today.
Yeah.
But we have this kind of like ideal of like the farmer philosopher in America, right? Like you might be doing like manual labor, but that doesn't mean you can't also be a philosopher. Just because your body's working doesn't mean your mind isn't working. Yeah. Right? So it's like, at the same time, we do encourage college and like, I don't want to overstate my case, but I would say that that's kind of like an undercurrent.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's how people would necessarily see it actually in America, even today. But I think that there is an undercurrent that makes people say things like college is a scam. You don't need college.
Yeah.
You just going to college doesn't make you smart. It doesn't mean you're going to make money.
Yeah, it doesn't make you richer.
And so I think that that's part of that like undercurrent. The culture is deep in that way. So, but yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah, because in China, since we have affordable tuition fee, every student graduated from high school has a chance to finish their education. Higher education, which is college, university class. So once they graduated from, they got their bachelor degree, they cannot even find a job. They cannot find well-paid job than a high school educated guy. So because there's so many people there, so many people with
so much competition,
especially when the situation getting worse and worse. So which we discussed in the beginning, the involution, Neijuan. So people just
and you're working long hours, you're not making that much.
Yeah, I can work for free. Come on, I can work for free. Just give me this opportunity to work. Yeah. And nowadays people, the people to solve that, and Chinese are not think we're going to work less. We're going to like compete in a healthy way. We're going to make it worse. So since my diploma is not enough anymore, I'm going to go after for my master, go after for my doctor degree, in order to
That's
get
what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated with my English degree, and then I was like, I can't do anything with this. I better get a master's. Thankfully, I found a master's program that was basically free. So I didn't go into debt for it, but a lot of people do. But sometimes it does feel like a trap. The education trap.
Yeah.
But the other degree that I'm a little suspicious of is business, because it's not that you can't learn anything in business school.
Yeah.
But really, if you're going to start a business, taking a class on,
is necessary.
On, marketing.
Yeah.
Isn't going to be that useful to you.
Yeah.
Like you just have to go out there and, really you have to find mentors. You have to find people who know what they're doing. And then you just have to try things and be willing to fail.
Yeah.
So I had a student when I taught college he was a business major, but he was not waiting until graduating in order to start a business. He was like in school as a business major, and then he was also starting a business. And
you can do that as long as you have capital.
Yeah. By the end of his first year of college, he was making enough to pay his tuition already. And he decided, instead of paying tuition, I want to use that money to reinvest in my business. So he just dropped out.
Yeah.
And when he came and told me that, I was like, I support you.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it is. Great companies, founders are all like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Successful. You can copy these successful stories with the dropping off school first.
Yeah. 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 My advice would be, don't wait till you're done with college.
Yeah.
Just work hard now. A lot of times what people do is they just like go to college and they do what they're supposed to do for their classes and kind of the bare minimum for whatever their standard is. So bare minimum for C's or bare minimum for B's or bare minimum for A's, whatever the bare minimum is for what your goal is. That's what they do. And then, but I feel like you could do in college, you can also use your time to like actually build yourself.
To invest in yourself.
Yeah. For the future that you want, even outside of school.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of college students waste time in like partying and all kinds of foolishness that doesn't really benefit their future.
Yeah. I think it takes time for themselves to discover themselves. For those people to discover themselves. Having fun time is one of way to discover themselves.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with having fun.
Yeah, I know, but
sometimes you can, I don't want to say have too much fun, but just like prioritize things that don't deserve priority. Yeah.
It's a luxury to waste your time like that when we look backward. Yeah. But that's what we used to do when we were young.
Yeah.
How come that you just find that your bachelor degree is not enough for finding a job? Is that because you major in literature?
Yeah, I majored in literature. So there's not really much that a degree in literature qualifies you to do. Yeah. I mean, I spent 4 years analyzing poems and reading stories, and I loved it. Yeah. I loved every minute of it. It was so much fun.
You enjoyed the time.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Talking about fun.
Yeah. That's the most important thing, no matter how much money you're making.
Yeah, and it was engaging for my mind, and it was exciting, and I felt like I was learning about, not just about literature, I was learning about history, and I was learning about religion, and I was learning about philosophy and psychology, and all of those really fascinating things of trying to get at the really big, deep questions of, why am I here in the universe? And
so why are you here?
Why am I here? It's a good question.
Do you have an answer?
I do have an answer. I'm here to serve God. Yeah, that's my answer.
Great.
And that God put us here in this beautiful, vast universe. And I think that He wants us to enjoy the world.
And to know more about Him.
And to know more about Him and serve Him. And that in knowing Him and serving Him, and fully enjoying and appreciating the beauty of the world and His beauty, that we can live fulfilling our purpose in life. That's my answer.
Beautiful.
But when I was in college, I had all kinds of questions about, how do people work? Why do people do things the way they do things? How did we end up where we are today in all the problems of the world? Because the world's full of problems.
Yeah.
People are full of problems.
Yeah.
People are full of flaws. And so I wanted to see if I could get at the root of those problems. And I feel like artists and writers are really good writers and good artists. I have to give that little caveat. They get to the heart of the issue. And so getting to read the great works of literature and look at the great pieces of art, I felt like I was able to come closer to the heart of the problem. And so that was so worth it to me. And that's why I did it. And I knew that I wanted to do, in my goals for my future at that time, I wanted to either be a lawyer.
Or a doctor.
A teacher. Or a professor.
Okay, there is no doctor.
There is no doctor. I gave that up the second I chose English major. I knew I was not going to be a doctor. Although I kind of regretted it after I graduated. So those were kind of the 3 careers that I was looking at. They all require further education.
At least master.
Yeah, at least a master's.
How come
you can become a teacher? You can become a teacher with a bachelor's, but you have to be an education major. And I didn't want to be an education major. I wanted to be an English major.
Okay.
So if you want to be an English major and then be a teacher, you have to get a master's. You can combine it with like an English major with a teaching certificate, but it takes 5 years. Yeah. So that's basically.
Is there a 1-year program for educational major?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't you choose that?
Because I didn't want to spend 5 years, and I thought of it as a waste of money.
Yeah.
For me personally, I thought of it as a waste of money because I knew I wanted to teach secondary school, and I felt that it was better to be as educated as possible in the subject that I was going to be teaching high school students, and I could figure out the teaching aspect later. So I just dedicated myself to learning my subject, and then I actually did research my freshman year of college where I found out that in the state of California, you don't have to be certified in order to start teaching. You have to be working towards your certification. As long as you can find someone to hire you, that's the
key.
The key. If you can find someone to hire you, you don't have to be certified, but you do have to be working towards your certification while you're working as a teacher. So I thought to myself, if God wants me to be a teacher, he can find someone to hire me.
I did.
And he did. Now, I didn't just leave that fully to chance. I did go and get my master's in English, which made me I don't think I would have been able to it would have been much more difficult for me to get the job if I didn't have my master's in English, which while I was getting my master's, I was able to get teaching experience, teaching at the university where I was getting my master's. So that was kind of my path. English majors, if you don't get further education, you're going to end up being a barista at Starbucks. So pretty much all the English majors I knew had plans for further education after college. There are some like exceptions, because there are certain like journalistic companies that will hire English majors, but only from specific colleges. So if you want to use your English degree to go become an editor or something like that, you actually have to, you can't just go to any college and get an English major. You have to go to like,
specific,
you'd be like, oh, the English majors from Columbia get hired at this particular, institution. So then it's like, oh, I want to work for the New York Times. Well, then I have to go to this college because people who get hired at New York Times went to this college. That kind of thing. So you have to be pretty smart about it when you're in high school if you have a goal like that. But for most English majors, they don't think that deeply or have that much foresight to plan ahead. And so a lot of them kind of get stuck. I personally know someone who was an English major, and after she graduated, she started working as an adjunct, teaching like college classes, which is terrible money. No job security. Like you get paid, it's like a flat fee per course. It's like, I don't remember how much it was, but I think it was like
minimum wage.
It's a flat fee per course.
Okay.
So it's like, $2,000 to teach 3 months. One class.
Is that against law? Because
there have been lawsuits filed.
Okay.
But it might be higher. It might be like $3,000 or $4,000 to teach a class for 3 months. But it's like, that's very part-time. You teach
once a week.
You teach 4 days. You teach for 1 hour, 4 days a week.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right. So I did that after I finished my master's. I did that for like a year where I taught like 2 classes as an adjunct. It's like 0 job. Like people are impressed. They're like, oh, you teach at college. But like the reality is you make no money, hardly. And you do not make enough money to live on, even sharing a house with someone. And then you work. It takes quite a bit of work, and there's no job security and no benefits. So you don't have health insurance. You don't have like anything like that. So there was a girl I knew. She started adjuncting, and because you can't live as an adjunct, she also got a job as a barista at a local coffee shop. So she was like working basically full time as a barista and then teaching on the side. And then she was going to like go. I think her plan was to get a PhD or something like that. Well, in the meantime, they offered her the manager position, and she was like, "That's way better money, better benefits, better everything. I'm just going to be a manager, coffee shop manager for my career." So this is kind of it's not an uncommon story for an English major. But many of them go on to law school. It's a pretty popular degree for aspiring lawyers because there isn't like a pre-law degree. You choose if you want to go to law school.
So that's also important because in China, you can major in law in college. In college, you don't have to like in America. You have to.
You get a bachelor's in
at least
anything, literally anything.
Anything to
you could be a chemistry major
in law
and then go to law school. Which is actually not a bad idea to do a science major and then go to law school because then you can get into patent law. Because you have to know the language. You could do like if you're really smart, you could do like an engineering major and then go to law school, and then you can do patents for people who are doing inventions because you know the language, you'll be able to understand whether or not something is patentable. Because if you're a patent lawyer, you have to look at all the other patents and be like, no, actually, that's already been patented. Sorry, try again. So yeah, you can major in anything, but probably the 2 most popular majors for pre-law is English and history.
That's the easiest one. to easiest degree for them to get.
It's not that it's the easiest; it's that it's actually quite beneficial. I would say English major is a very beneficial major for anyone going to law school.
Yeah.
Because lawyers, their job is to write, and so what major is going to give you the most practice in writing? Literature. And the other skill that's highly valued is you have to be able to read. You have to be able to read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so what major asks you to read a lot?
Yeah.
Literature. Not only do you have to be able to read, you have to be able to analyze things. You have to be able to analyze texts. You have to be able to pay attention to the individual quality of each word and how that impacts the meaning and the sentences. And it's like one word in a contract can throw the whole contract off. But you have to be able to train your mind and your eyes to pay attention to the way every single word impacts what happens in the world. And so as a literature major, what are you doing? You're reading, you're analyzing, and you're writing, and you're researching. So all of those skills are very beneficial to a future lawyer. So it's kind of like and it's also fun. I think it's fun. But yeah, so it's a pretty popular major for people who are going to law school. The other really popular major for law school is poli-sci.
Poli-sci?
Yeah, political science.
Oh, political, okay.
Yeah, which is kind of like a easier version of philosophy. Combination of like philosophy and history and government stuff.
Yeah.
The British system is more similar, I think, to China, because in England, if you want to be a lawyer, you apply for a law degree to college.
Yeah.
And then you finish in 3 years. British college is only 3 years. Which is like, wow. You also have to apply to medical school from high school. Do you have to apply to medical school from high school in China?
They can just go to medical school.
From high school or from after college? Like, do you do college?
From high school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because here, you don't go to...
Yeah, same with the lawyer.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. And I think Chinese, our ultimate goal, Gaokao, which is the examination, it's not designed for... It's actually designed not for training or teaching these kids to be a mature, lifelong learner, but for distributing them into different ways. Because there are so many people. How do you distribute these things?
Sort them into different professions?
Yeah.
So how does the Chinese system with scores? Yeah. When do they start? When does that process start? Like, does it start in high school or does it start
from
in
the beginning,
elementary school?
From the
like you're like you're like first grade and you're like, oh, you're the smart one. You go to the smart school. You go to the not smart school.
No,
or like.
You won't believe it. It starts from, how do you say, preschool.
Wow. That's
like
terrible.
When you were 3.
I would have failed. I didn't learn to read until 4th grade.
4th grade?
Yeah.
What do you mean you didn't learn to read?
I couldn't read until 4th grade.
How?
I'm dyslexic. Yeah.
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah, so I would have failed.
No.
Yeah, I feel like here there's like a more of a trend towards like encouraging people towards more opportunities more broadly outside of college.
I have a friend who's sent their kids here. Their kid is a little girl, probably 12. So since it's her first couple of weeks a month coming here, so she have take a lot of time to get familiar with all the things.
Yeah.
So she sucks at studying. But you know what?
Okay.
What shocked me is that the teacher, her teacher encouraged her. No, you don't have to score that. You don't have to study good. You are good at this or that. Her teacher always has something to compliment. Give her a compliment.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable for Chinese.
Yeah, that's
students.
very common here.
Yeah,
that's very common.
It's pretty common. What you regard as pretty common is the pressures thing in China.
Yeah, I mean,
because you're nothing. You're nobody.
Students have different talents.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can't expect everyone to be
the same.
You know, but there's no reason to destroy someone's confidence and like their hope just because they don't have the same abilities as like a top student. Yeah. You know, there is a line to draw where sometimes when teachers can do that too much, and it can actually be, I think, detrimental to the student actually achieving their full potential. You know, I think you can go too far in like telling kids like, oh, you don't need to do as well. Like, I think what I try to do is tell them they can do better.
You can always do better.
You can always do better. You don't have to be the best, but you can always be your best.
Better than you were yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.